Hello, I'm doing a movie review, and the movie I want to review is Superman and the Mole Men. Now, Superman and the Mole Men came out in 1951, and this is the first feature-length film to feature the character of Superman. I say it's feature-length, but it's actually like an hour long, but still, like, this is the first, like, feature-length film to feature this character, and it's also the first feature-length film to feature any DC character. Now, it's technically not the first Superman movie because if you think about it, like a lot of the Fletcher Superman cartoons, those are all short films, and they were released theatrically, so those can kind of count as movies, and this is also not the first live-action Superman movie. Prior to this, there were actually two live-action Superman serials. One was called Superman, which was released in 1948, and the other was Atom Man vs. Superman, which was released in 1950. In both of those serials, Superman was played by an actor named Kirk Alyn. Now, even though this is the first feature film to feature the character of Superman, if you count the two live-action serials that came before this, if you count those as movies, that means this is technically the third live-action Superman movie. However, this movie is not in continuity with the two serials. This movie is actually in the same continuity as the 50s TV series Adventures of Superman. In fact, this movie actually came out before the TV series came out, so technically the TV series Adventures of Superman was spawned out of this movie. Now, in the movie, Superman is played by George Reeves, who also played Superman in the TV series. Now, even though George Reeves was not the first actor to play Superman, he's definitely one of the most iconic people to play this character. Like, even people who have never watched this TV show instantly recognize George Reeves' Superman. Like, I would argue that the one actor to really kind of surpass George Reeves, at least in terms of popularity, would be Christopher Reeves when he played Superman in the Richard Donner movies. Now, George Reeves unfortunately killed himself in 1959, even though there is some debate as to whether his death was actually a suicide or not. I'm not going to get too much into that. I mean, I just wanted to mention it. Now, I have the first season of Adventures of Superman on DVD, and this DVD set also comes with this movie, Superman and the Mole Men, as one of these special features. Now, this movie was actually later released as a two-part episode of the series called The Unknown People. Now, the plot of Superman and the Mole Men is it begins where Clark Kent and Lois Lane go to this small town to write a story on this oil rig that they just built in the town, and apparently they drilled down 6 miles underground. And it turns out that they actually drilled down into this underground world inhabited by these short humanoid creatures who end up crawling to the surface. Now, in this movie, there really isn't a villain per se. Really, paranoia and fear is the true antagonist of this story. Because basically, in the movie, the townspeople, they attack the Mole Men out of fear, and the Mole Men fight back only to defend themselves. Really, the Mole Men are just curious about the surface world, but once again, paranoia is the true antagonist of this story. But basically, in the movie, Clark Kent becomes Superman, and really, in this movie, Superman is just trying to maintain some kind of order and keep the humans from attacking these creatures out of fear and keep the creatures from attacking the townspeople to defend themselves. Now, Superman and the Mole Men was an excellent movie, and I was genuinely surprised because I only recently saw this movie for the first time, and I was genuinely surprised with not just how good this movie was, but also how thoughtful this movie was, and and if you consider what was going on politically at the time this movie came out, this movie actually does have a lot of social commentary in it. Like, the main theme of this movie is paranoia, and really how we shouldn't jump to conclusions and just assume something about people that we don't understand. And if you consider what was going on at the time, this came out in 1951. This was pretty much at the beginning of the whole Cold War era, and there was a lot of fear of communism. Like, right around this time, Joseph McCarthy was going around blacklisting everybody who he saw as a communist, so there was a lot of paranoia in America at the time, and this movie definitely seems to be reflecting a lot of the paranoia that people were having at this time. And even in the movie, it appears that these creatures spread some kind of radiation around, and that could also be reflecting a lot of people's fears of nuclear war at the time. There also seems to be some commentary on prejudice in this movie, because Superman and Clark Kent even say in this movie at one point, just because we don't understand these people doesn't mean they're dangerous, so there definitely seems to be some kind of commentary on prejudice in this film, which for 1951, that was pretty ballsy to touch on themes like that. So even though at this time superhero movies were kind of geared more towards children, this one is actually a lot more mature and a lot more adult than you might think for a superhero movie coming out at this time. So yeah, I highly recommend Superman and the Mole Men. It's a fantastic movie, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't seen this movie already. So yeah, that's my review on Superman and the Mole Men, and bye.